if you would call the roll, please.
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Here.
trustee Mishu.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, well, we'll get started, and I see faculty reps. Clyde, good morning. And do we have any other faculty reps here that I'm missing? Or any students here that are missing? Okay, well, we'll go ahead. We have a busy agenda, as you can all see. So we'll start with tab 1. This is a Boardman Hall modernization project at the University of Maine. President Farini Money, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Jumping right into this Boardman Hall modernization, this is a request to you to authorize us to expend up to $10 million and $40,000 to begin the work on design and pre-construction for the renovation of Boardman Hall. This is one of our primary engineering and computing facilities on the University of Maine campus. It serves about 65% of our undergraduates in certain areas of engineering and computing. It's vital to the actual Harold Alfond Transforms goal of doubling our engineering enrollment over the next 10 years. The beginning of the renovation would begin right away, and then we would expect to bring this item to the board in the fall of 2026, I believe, for full construction. The funding will come from the Harold Alfond Foundation gift, UMS Transforms MCEC. This has been in the capital plan, and it is a part of what Dana Humphrey used to call the engineering neighborhood, I believe.
Thank you. Questions of the president on this agenda item? I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much. And let me then read the text of the proposed resolution that the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded for Board of Trustee approval on the July 14, 2025 board meeting agenda. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to expend up to $10,040,000 for the modernization of Boardman Hall. This authorization includes funding for design and pre-construction services, early site and building work, procurement of long lead time equipment, and early construction packages. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by, I'm sorry?
So moved. Emily Kane.
By Emily, and seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Mike Mishu. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Mishu.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Then move on to the second item, which is a tab 2 of our materials. Darling Marine Center Marine Culture Laboratory renovation to increase the resilience of Maine's aquaculture industry. Again, sponsored by the University of Maine. Again, President Farini Monday.
Thank you, Trustee Kate. So this is a continuation. Several of these items coming up have to do with the expansion and modernization, really, of our R&D mission at the University of Maine. This is about the Darling Marine Center in Walpole, Maine. We are seeking a renovation that will enable us to provide hatchery-grade seawater, which is really important for the testing and collaboration that we have with the Maine aquaculture industry across the state, as well as for the workforce development in that growing field for Maine. The funding for this that we're requesting your authorization to spend is up to $1,362,000 coming from congressionally directed spending secured by Senators Collins and King in fiscal 24. So that funding is secure and is here. And we seek your authorization to move forward with the plan to improve and modernize that facility.
Thank you. Questions? President, so that money is in hand already?
Mm-hmm. Yes. 24 is fine.
Thank you. Any questions of the president? Discussion? I'm seeing none. Then let me read the text of the proposed resolution that the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded for Board of Trustees approval at the July 14, 2025 board meeting. that the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to expend up to $1,362,000 for the Darling Marine Center Marine Culture Laboratory renovation to increase the resilience of Maine's aquaculture industry. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
trustee Mission and second by trustee Kane. Is there any discussion? I'm seeing none. Beth, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
yes,
trustee Mishu.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to another University of Maine project at tab 3 of our materials, UMaine Forest Biomaterials Innovation Center. Again, President Farini Monday. Again, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Here we are seeking your authorization to spend up to $7.425 million for the design and construction of our new Forest Bioproducts Innovation Center, which is on the in the R&D cycle. It's definitely on the development side. It will be a space where companies can come and test their equipment in partnership with our Process Development Center and other labs on campus. So this will be a new building that will allow for innovative processing of forest fiber at demonstration scale. And it's coming from CDS funding supported through NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, from fiscal 24, again, with gratitude to Senators Collins and King.
Thank you. And again, the money in hand.
I keep saying yes. I've sent a couple of texts to be certain of that, but it's my understanding that 24 is in hand.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, trustee McMahon.
You talk about the incremental operating costs being covered by FNA. Does that make an assumption that the FNA is at the current level rather than proposed levels?
It would have made that assumption, yes, sir. But of course, all of that is in great flux right now and may require adjustment of budgets overall for us going forward.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, let me then read the text of the proposed resolution that the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded for Board of Trustee approval at the July 14, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee to authorize the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to expend up to $7,425,000 for the design and construction of the new Forest Biomaterials Innovation Center research facility. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee
Second.
Mishu and seconded by trustee Kane. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you please take the roll call vote?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
yes,
trustee Mishu.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Then, sorry, Ryan?
Yeah, I just want to mention, because I know we have a huge following of people out there that watch our meetings, that just a reminder to everyone that most of these items have all been in front of the committee, including most of them just a couple of months ago. They come as information items if they're substantial in nature. And so if someone is following along and thinking we're rapidly approving multi-million-dollar expenditures, most of these we've talked about on multiple occasions. And so I just wanted to, I should have said that at the beginning, but wanted to mention that.
Thanks for saying that.
I was thinking the same thing, Ryan. You're reading my mind. I also think it's important to know that like trustees have had these materials for a while now to familiarize ourselves with them, so which is why we don't have to go into great details. So, and they've been publicly available too. So I'm reading my mind, Ryan.
Right. And that's on, thank you, Emily. And that's on top of the months of work behind the scenes that are put into even get this to our committee for information meeting, let alone consideration. So it's not like somebody thought these up last week. For instance, let's just take this one as an example. I don't mean to put you on the spot, President Farini Monday, but this congressionally directed funding has been in the works for how long roughly? Can you?
Well, the work on it would have certainly started in fiscal 23.
Right.
Just the submission, Sam may well have been the submitter of this one, and with thanks to Sam, which would mean that the planning and the consultation with the community would have started even before that. The need for this kind of a center, the demand in the state of Maine for this kind of support, and that would be typical of the preparation for all of them, at least a couple of years. In the planning and the design and long-term thinking about what's needed.
Thank you.
Yet, Chair Cates, this
Yes.
is not to detract in any way from your efficient running of your excellent meeting. You're very efficient in the way you run these things.
Well, thank you.
Keep up
but
the
it's-
good work.
But thank you for saying that. But it is important that people who are watching understand that these things just aren't getting presented this morning without a great deal of work by staff and the campuses and Sam, to the extent it involves congressionally directed funding to bring it to this point. So thank you. So we will then move on to the next agenda item, which is at tab 4, also at the University of Maine. Maine Agricultural and Forest Experiment Station Analytical Laboratory Modernization and Expansion. Again, President Freeney Monday.
Thank you. And here, similarly, we are requesting authorization to expend up to $4.969 million to modernize and expand our analytical lab and soil testing services. The last time this lab was constructed about 44 years ago in Deering Hall on the University of Maine campus. It serves the community across the state of Maine through soil testing, thousands of annual users where they conduct soil research and strong student engagement in this work as well. Very, very consistent with our land grant mission and with the work of MAFIS, in particular, the Maine Agricultural Forest Experiment Station, which is part of our, again, part of our land grant mandate. These dollars are coming similarly from NIST, 2 different awards secured by Senators Collins and King in 24 CDS activities. So we're very excited about being able to modernize this and serve the state of Maine more fully.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? And again, not to repeat this every time we are approving one of these, but thanks to Sam Warren, who spends hours and hours and hours trying to facilitate this funding through our elected representatives, and particular thanks to Senator Collins and Senator King, who have really done a tremendous job in helping get approval for all of these important projects. So thank you. Any other questions about this particular project? Seeing none, let me then read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine acting through the and authorizes University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine to expend up to $4,969,000 for the modernization and expansion of the Maine Agricultural and Forest Experiment Station, Analytical Laboratory, and Soil Testing Services. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Michoud and seconded by Trustee Kane. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, then Beth, could you please take the roll call vote?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
Trustee Flood,
Yes,
Trustee Michoud.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on then to the next agenda item, which is at tab 5, College of the Atlantic lease. And again, President Freeney Monday.
Yes, we have 2 items. This is the first of them. This is a request coming through our Maine Sea Grant program, which of course you saw in the press earlier this semester, where that grant was paused and then restored through the great work of Senator Collins and our delegation. Sea Grant is in a sense, it's an extension-like kind of activity that serves communities around the state. That's its mandate. And therefore they need facilities around the state to situate their staff and to be available to the public. And so we rent space in a few places, and here we're requesting your authorization to renew, I guess it's a renewal, but in any case, it's a enter into a lease agreement with the College of the Atlantic as a part of the Sea Grant project, so that we can house staff there and to be responsive to the community in that part of the state.
Thank you. Questions for the president? And by the way, I don't have everybody on my screen, so if you have a question I don't recognize, you just speak up. Seeing none, let me then read the text of the proposed resolution that the Board of Trustees, acting through the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee, authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the University of Maine, to enter into a lease agreement with the College of the Atlantic with all final terms and conditions subject to review and approval by the University of Maine system treasurer and general counsel. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
trustee Michu and seconded by trustee Kane. Is there a discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Michu,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Continuing on with items from the University of Maine, at tab 6 of our materials, Eastport Port Authority lease. Again, President Farini Monday.
Thank you, Chair. So this is in the same category. This is a facility, an office essentially that is staffed by and funded by Sea Grant at the Eastport Port Authority, which is a close local partner for us, serving down East Maine, Eastport, and other communities in that area. And so similar to the last, this is a request for you to authorize that we enter into a lease agreement with this organization.
And again, is this, we're already there presently?
Yes,
Extension?
I believe so, right, Gretchen? Yeah.
You're correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions about this project? Seeing none, then let me read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Board of Trustees, acting through the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee, authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the University of Maine, to enter into a lease agreement with Eastport Port Authority with all final terms and conditions subject to review and approval by the University of Maine system treasurer and general counsel. And again, this is one that we act on and does not need to go to the board for board approval. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
trustee Michu and seconded by trustee Kane. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Michu,
Yes.
the motion carries.
And last but not least, President Farini Monday.
Okay.
Orchard Trails Apartments lease increase.
Thank you. So our lease with Orchard Trails Apartments has been in place for a year because we are working with that space for essentially overflow with our lack of number of beds needed on campus. And so we are requesting your authorization to continue that into fiscal 26, where we are expecting another high demand year for on-campus housing. And we're asking that you authorize us to change the lease amount from $410,000 to $492,000 with Orchard Trail Apartments.
Thank you. Questions of the president about this matter? Seeing none, let me then read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Board of Trustees, acting through the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee, authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the University of Maine, to amend the authorized lease agreement from 10 four-bedroom student apartments for $410,000 to 12 four-bedroom student apartments for $492,480 with Orchard Trails Apartment in FY26. Is there such a motion?
Moved.
Second, moved by trustee Michu, seconded by trustee Kane. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Michu,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you, President Free-Monday. You can take a break now. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Next on the agenda at tab 8, additional residential housing in Hallowell for the University of Maine at Augusta. Good morning, President Cushman.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss a strategic pathway to enhance UMA's housing initiative. As you maybe recall, this proposal was introduced at our last meeting as an informational item, and today we return to seek your approval formally. We are requesting authorization for the University of Maine at Augusta to enter into a 15-year lease agreement with Mastway Development, LLC, for a newly developed residential housing and dining facility. This would be located adjacent to our existing housing units in Hallowell, and it would add 62 beds to our current 103 for a total of 165, as well as a full-service dining hall. The investment is a key component of our broader efforts to support student success, grow enrollment, and enhance residents' life, as well as grow revenue from conferencing and camps. It aligns with the University of Maine System's strategic plan, specifically Action 3 Goals 3.1 and 3.2, which focus on building student community and delivering responsive, inclusive co-curricular experiences. It also advances UMA's own strategic priorities, including onboarding and supporting students, Strategy 1, strengthening in-person cohort programs, Strategy 3, and providing equitable housing options for students of all backgrounds, Strategy 5. It supports our long-term efforts to make UMA a destination for both Maine students and those from out of state seeking a high-quality residential college experience. And UMA housing demand is growing fast, especially in programs like nursing, aviation, architecture, and cybersecurity. And our Hallowell housing units have consistently been at or above 100% occupancy. So the new facility will significantly improve the residential student experience at UMA. In addition to addressing capacity challenges, which we are facing, it will introduce features that support community engagement, including a full-service dining hall, which is currently absent from our housing offerings, a large student commons, an outdoor patio, and a sports court, and walkable access to downtown Hallowell's vibrant restaurants, arts venues, and civic resources. So these amenities will foster greater social connection, promote well-being, and provide a more cohesive and rewarding student life environment. It also directly supports UMA's academic mission, with growing demand for in-person programs such as nursing, aviation, cybersecurity, and architecture. Access to existing student resources is vital. Cohort-based housing will help foster peer networks and support structures that improve retention and persistence. Close proximity to labs, studios, flight training, and in-person classes is an advantage for students residing in Hallowell with our shuttle service. The project also serves equity and access goals by providing secure, affordable housing to first-generation rural and adult learners, which are populations particularly impacted by Maine's competitive housing market. Long-term, this adds capacity, strengthens our ability to attract out-of-state students, and creates new opportunities for academic innovation, including the use of immersion spaces and training with the use of virtual reality. And the dining facility will increase our ability to offer summer conferencing and camps. So with that context in mind, I'd like to turn it over to our Chief Business Officer, Eileen Robinson, who will walk us through the financial and operational structure of the proposed lease.
Thank you, President Cushman, and good morning to the members of FFT. As you've just heard, this proposal is a student-centered and mission-aligned strategy that will allow UMA to expand its residential capacity in a financially responsible and sustainable way. I'll take a few moments to walk through the key financial and operational aspects of this proposal. As President Cushman just mentioned, we're proposing to enter a 15-year lease agreement for a to-be-built 62-unit student residential housing and dining facility located at Stevens Commons in Hallowell, with an annual lease cost of approximately $907,000 for a total lease commitment of $13.6 million over the full 15-year term. Funding for this lease would come from a combination of student room and board revenue, auxiliary funds, and bolstered conferencing and event income. The latter it would be made possible by having food service integrated into the facility. Sodexo, our food service and conferencing partner, conservatively estimated that adding a full-service dining facility to the Commons could result in a $100,000 increase in revenue in the first year alone. As this lease is structured in the same way as the previous 3 leases that the BOT has approved, it offers a flexible, lower-risk solution, especially when compared to building a new residence hall from the ground up on our campus or relocating to another site in Augusta. And you may be wondering why this lease is for 15 years when our previous housing leases have been for much shorter terms. The longer lease period was a requirement of the financing institution used by Massway Development due to the nature of the project. Because this is a new construction and not a renovation or a reuse of an existing facility, the bank needed a longer-term commitment to support the financing and mitigate their risk. While it's a longer commitment than we've made in the past, the terms remain favorable and allow us to secure a high-quality facility that's actually tailored to our specific needs and the needs of our partners, Sodexo. So why do we need this additional unit now? Just simply put, as President Cushman said, our demand continues to exceed our current housing capacity. UMA currently offers 103 student beds, which remain consistently at full capacity. Due to overflow demand, we accommodated an additional 20 students in a hotel adjacent to campus last fall. As of June 23rd of this year, we already had 170 housing applications for the upcoming academic year, which is a 21% increase compared to the same time last year. We anticipate approximately 20 more applications coming in the next few months, which would bring our total projected applications to 190, which is a 36% year-over-year increase. At this time, all 103 beds at the Stevens Commons are filled, and we have 53 students who have confirmed they will reside in the hotel next academic year. So as you can see, this level of demand cannot be accommodated with our current housing infrastructure. With Central Maine's rental vacancy rate below 2%, according to the Maine Housing Authority, the housing costs continuing to rise, university-affiliated housing remains the most viable and in many cases the only option for many of our students, particularly those coming from out of state or without access to reliable transportation. In addition to meeting students' needs, this proposal makes strong financial sense. Building a comparable facility on campus would cost an estimated $27 million, which is about double the cost of the proposed lease, and it doesn't account for the additional staff and maintenance costs that come with building another building on our campus. Leasing this facility allows us to avoid significant capital risk while maintaining financial flexibility. The lease includes a $285,000 annual operating cost, which will be covered by the lessor, so that relieves us of that expense. Additionally, we will not need to hire new staff as our current staffing model is sufficient to support the new facility. Importantly, this leasing approach gives us the ability to adapt to future changes in enrollment or housing demand. If enrollment were to drop, we could gradually scale back without long-term burden as the other lease terms expire on the other units at Stevens Commons. This ensures that we can preserve this new facility, maintaining critical dining and conferencing capabilities while remaining financially agile. So just in summary, this proposal delivers exactly what UMA needs. It's a cost-effective, flexible, and strategic solution to our student housing demand. It enhances our ability to support current and future students, helps us stay competitive in attracting and retaining those in high-demand academic programs, and it does so in a way that is financially stable and operationally efficient. So thank you again for your time and consideration, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Ali, thank you very much. Questions from the group? Yes, Trustee Michoud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, question, refresh my memory. My concern is the length of time, and because it's hard to predict what's going to happen 15 years out when you look at student enrollment and what might happen. Is there any way that gives us some leeway to exit this lease if need be?
So the other three units, so Erskine comes up in 2027, Stevens in 2029, and Cleveland in 2033. So what we would do is we would exit one of those leases, and when we re-sign, we'll sign shorter term leases on those ones. But we would really want to retain that building because that's where our dining facility would be.
Okay. What were the years of the other leases? Said 2020.
Yep, Erskine is in 2027, and that's 42 beds.
No.
Stevens is in 2029, and that's 38 beds. And Cleveland is in 2033, and that's 23 beds.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee. Trustee Flood.
Thank you. I like the proposal. I just wanted to know if have we used all those buildings that are existing at Stevens. I know we've used 3. Are there any more buildings up there, Ally, or have we used up all the existing structures in the in that housing?
Yes, so either we've used them or another entity has, but yes, all of the existing structures are being utilized, and then they're building other units for other housing type things there too.
Sure, thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you. Trustee McMahon.
Is the incremental tuition income from these residences included in your calculation? In other words, are you assuming people are going to take 12 credits per semester to do this calculation?
We are correct, yes.
And you're assuming that this is at the basic tuition rate?
I'm sorry, you broke up. I couldn't.
You're assuming that this is at the basic tuition rate. So you're not assuming any scholarshiping or granting or anything like that to reduce the tuition income?
Well, we do include, we have waivers for like CAs and that sort of thing, but we're not including the waivers that we have for presidential or things like that of that nature in this calculation. But we do budget for that elsewhere, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Ali, let me ask you one, or maybe it's for President Cushman. So part of the justification for the housing in general is to help enhance the several of our programs, among them being aviation, architecture, and cybersecurity, which I think attract a disproportionate number of out-of-state students. Are we going to be giving any preference for people enrolled in those programs for this housing over, say, just a general BA candidates who is local?
I believe John Henry is with us, so he might be able to answer this a little better. I do know that we have there's apartments in Stevens and Erskine, and I do know that we try to partner, architecture students together in them and whatnot. I don't believe that they're preferential, but probably John could weigh in more on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. John Henry, Vice President of Enrollment Management at UMA. We don't give preference by academic program. It's generally not a good practice, but we do know that they tend to apply it in a regular normal time, and they tend to commit earlier. So they work in a more traditional schedule. So they tend to get committed first and assigned first. So it's not a problem to do that. We know that predominantly those students are architecture, nursing as well. Trustee Cates, that's another area that we expect growth with. And student athletes and international. So it's disproportionately out of state, disproportionately athlete, and disproportionately those 4 programs you mentioned.
Also paying out of state tuition rates, presumably.
Right. We were only maybe 9 or 10% out of state, but at the residence halls we were over 35% out of state at the Valley last time I looked.
Thank you. One of our board members couldn't be present this morning, but did ask that I ask a number of questions that they had. So let me do that. It says UMA now has 103 beds and 20 in the motel for a total of 123. This new building will increase beds by 62 for a total of 165. So the university needs 40 more students every year to justify the costs. And the question is, are you confident you're going to have that additional demand?
So the numbers that you just said were from actually last year. So this year we already have 53 students committed to the hotel. So we have the 103 and the 53. So yes, we are very confident that we are going to fill this building.
Okay. The next question, how is your decision to move ahead affected by the uncertainty of the Pell Grant program in Washington and the significant changes that we might be facing as a result of that?
We'll take a stab at that.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Oh, I thank you, President Cushman. I'm not really worried about that. I just think we have a high Pell institution. We have the tuition promise called the Pine Tree State Pledge. which promises zero tuition, that costs us $5,800 this semester. It's a very inexpensive pledge to us because the Pell Grant is so large, and the Maine State Grant sits at $2,500. Even if Pell Grant went down to the $5,700 they've suggested, which I sincerely think it will not, we still would be fine with students. Our students will be fine financially. It hasn't even come into my thinking about that. I just don't see it going away. We would be punished by that, but not as much as our peer institutions in the state and in the region if Pell Grant actually went away and was decimated.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I think the context is important too. This is different than, if we were putting up couple thousand beds on a really large campus, then not that these questions aren't appropriate, but then I would really get it. But what we're talking about as well, it's important to note that this is a university that has several thousand students, and we're talking about 150 to 200 beds. And so even if the university population going forward stayed the same or even contracted a little bit, you still have housing demand regardless of that. And I think that's an important piece here. This is not a university that's at capacity and now is looking to expand. It's got demand, whether it's this population or, quite frankly, whether it's 10% smaller. We don't want that, but there would still be demand for housing. I think that's important context to add.
Thanks, Ryan. And the last question this member had was, some of the lease costs will be paid with student fees, future conference fees, and budgeted auxiliary funds. And do you have an estimate of what percentage of these total costs are going to be paid by those auxiliary matters or income?
I can share with the board members the cost analysis that we did with this many months back. I don't have it broken down by percentage right now in front of me, though.
Okay. But you have budgeted for some auxiliary funds making this work.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's the gist of this board member's questions that I said I would ask. Are there other questions or comments? Ryan, you still have your hand up? No? Okay. Gretchen, good morning.
Good morning. Just to reinforce the auxiliary budget, Eiley did reference an anticipated growth in the revenue as well with this new building due to the dining facility. So I think it's important to not lose sight of that.
Okay, are there other questions? Seeing none, then let me read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the Board of Trustees for approval at the July 14, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees approves the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Maine at Augusta to enter into a lease agreement for an approximately 17,910 square feet student residential housing space with Mastway Development LLC, also known as SC1 LLC, or its successor organization, for 15 years and a cost up to $13,608,540, with all final terms and conditions subject to review and approval of the University of Maine System Treasurer and General Counsel. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Micheaux and seconded by Trustee Kane. A discussion? Before we vote, I just want to say that I want to thank President Cushman and the others, representatives of the University of Maine at Augusta. This project has received quite a bit of scrutiny, and we've asked many questions. We've asked for much information, all of which they have cheerfully provided us with to get us to the point where we are today. And thank you for your patience and your understanding of the need to go through this process. But here we are. So could you please take the roll call vote?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
Trustee Flood,
Yes.
Trustee Micheaux,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. We will then move on to the next agenda item, University of Maine School of Law Comprehensive Campaign. President Softly, and perhaps as part of your presentation, or maybe before you start, why are we approving a campaign? I know the answer to that question because I asked it recently, but why is this coming before us?
It is coming before you because Rule 706 requires the board to approve a full campaign. This is a full campaign. It should begin with FFT, and we are ever so grateful to have this opportunity.
Welcome and good morning, and please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to begin this morning by thanking all of you for the opportunity to present what is the next phase of the rejuvenation of Maine law. With students thriving in the new building and our 10-year accreditation process completed, and the recent wonderful rankings from U.S. News and World Report, it is time for Maine law to expand on its successes and seek the philanthropic support of the legal and business community. I want to start by acknowledging the wonderful support of Chancellor Malloy in putting this campaign together. And I use the word support advisedly. I believe urging might be a better way to indicate the Chancellor's support, but we are now well on our way. It's important for everyone to understand that this has come together with the complete support and analysis of the University of Maine School of Law Foundation, led by Peter Mills, who's just been doing an extraordinary job, assisted by our own CBO, Nicole Vinyl. And in addition, we've had the dynamic assistance of Maine Law's first Chief Development Officer, Chris Haley, and our internal consultant, Bill Torrey, who spent many years leading Bowdoin's very successful advancement campaign. So this will be the first major gift campaign undertaken by Maine Law in over 20 years. We are really excited about this, and according to and pursuant to Board Rule 706, we're here to seek the support and approval of the full committee eventually. So here to help me do this, we have Nicole Vinyl, who is going to throw up our, and here it is. And let me just make this work for me. I'm going to talk fast and acknowledge that Chair Cates is doing such a wonderful job moving this meeting along crisply. I'm going to recommend that the governor consider putting him on the bench, maybe to move the cases that have fallen behind. So Roger, get ready for that.
Motion denied. Motion denied, Your Honor.
So for our campaign readiness, we have been working on this for the last year. As I noted, reaccreditation is completed. We have an approved ranking. Our strategic plan is almost done and has been reviewed and approved by the faculty, and we are moving forward quickly. We're working with Fundraising Council, who's giving us some support. We have our advancement team in place. We have a campaign budget and a steering committee. And this is something I learned about raising money, which of course judges are not allowed to do. So this was all brand new to me as I was learning how to put this together. The quiet phase. We have a quiet phase of raising money, and it awaits the board's approval. Okay, next slide, Nicole. We have gone through feasibility plans that have been put together in the past as recently as 2020. The 2020 plan was created around the arrangement of the Maine Center, which would work with Maine Law and others to raise funds primarily for the facility. We have hired a national recruiting firm to build our advancement office, which is now doing just marvelous work. We have a chief development officer. We have a director of annual giving, which is up and is doing really well. And we have several new apps that will help us with all of this planned giving. Next, Nicole. And here we go. So one of the things that I wanted to make clear, if you look at Rule 706 with regard to feasibility studies, a feasibility study done by an external consultant will run anywhere between $60,000 and $100,000, excuse me, just to have the study done. We decided to do the feasibility study internally as the rule allows. Chris Haley has completed more than 150 personal visits with potential donors to talk about how we might make this all work. We have begun now doing Founders Day every year. We have built a comprehensive alumni engagement program, which is really reconnecting Maine Law to the community. We're bringing back annual all-class reunions, which are quite a bit of fun. We have new and really engaged members on the foundation board. Giving has increased, and we have increased alumni engagement along the way. And with the work that Chris has done, we have determined that it is quite feasible for us to move forward with this campaign, and that we need not spend some of the funds we would raise on an external feasibility campaign. And next, we have identified those areas where we will be seeking support in this campaign. You have heard me recently talking about my concern about retention and recruitment of faculty. So one of our first priorities will be faculty support. Another priority is the facilities. We will be collaborating with the Maine Center and with its executive director, Seth Goodall, to bring in funding to help with the full facility, including 7 Custom House. And of course, student success and support is always one of our priorities. So it is a huge issue in this campaign, as are the clinics, which are doing just amazing work, both for the state of Maine and for helping our students be practice ready when they leave Maine Law. And our annual fund is already showing signs of really great rejuvenation. So those will be the campaign priorities. Here are the early successes. We've already begun raising funds for, and I soon will have I understand we have to have a thermometer. So we'll create a thermometer along the way. Here's our first 5 priorities. We're doing fine. Just this week, we have confirmed what will be our first $1 million donation to this comprehensive campaign at 10 million. We're very excited about that. And moving on. The quiet phase will begin as soon as the board approves the program, and will run either through the first full year or through 2 years, depending on how well we do with the quiet phase. It is my fondest hope that beginning in June of 26, we will announce what we can only call the noisy phase of our campaign, which will be coming up soon. And next. Here is the timeline raised to date. We're doing very well. We will begin the active campaign, and we anticipate completing this campaign before 2030. If you think about what's happening with the Alphon gift itself and a lot of the things that are going on there, these issues will all overlap, and we'll be working collaboratively together to make this campaign a huge success. So we have, as some of you know, a number of signature events that help us raise funding. This year, we're doing a big reunion weekend for the first time in a very long time. which should be a whole lot of fun. We'll have a campaign kickoff, I hope, next summer. The Coffin Lecture continues to draw people into Maine law, as does the Justice for Women Lecture, and our privacy program, which just wrapped up for the summer, is just an enormous success, drawing people into Maine law and helping us demonstrate the success of this wonderful institution. And next. Here is the budget. We have an advancement operations budget. We have a campaign consultant who has been helping us put all of this together along the way. We will have a campaign kickoff event, which we anticipate will require many, many hors d'oeuvres. So when I look at the $20,000 budget, I'm hoping we can keep it a little smaller than that. But I am told these are big events. And then, of course, the campaign celebrations. And I want to thank Ryan and the Chancellor and the Vice Chancellors. They have moved forward with a small campus initiative for fundraising. Maine Law has received $124,000 to help us with several apps that will allow us to connect with all of our alumni, with businesses, and with those who want to support Maine Law. That initiative has been really welcome at Maine Law, so I'm very grateful for it. And here, at last, is our campaign, comprehensive campaign steering committee. So you'll see Peter Mills is the honorary chair and Pat Scully is chairing. We have several faculty on the comprehensive campaign committee, a number of members of the foundation. We also have, of course, one of our clinic professors, which has been just incredibly successful and needs to expand. And then Chris Haley, Nicole Vinyl, Sarah Whitfield, who are just an amazing team in putting all of this work together. And I will draw a breath and try not to talk any further.
Thanks for the presentation. Very much appreciative and informative. Emily.
Thank you. President Southlake, very exciting. Is this the first campaign of this kind the law school has ever done?
From what I can tell, there were two prior campaigns that were smaller, that were not as comprehensive. When Dean Pitagoff was here, there was a campaign and they raised almost $700,000. And when Colleen Corey was dean, they had a campaign that was similar to this, where they raised just over $2 million. So it's not the very first, but it's the first quite expansive campaign.
That's very exciting. And it also feels like it feels like maybe this is the most infrastructure around a campaign that they've ever had.
That is exactly correct. So
Yeah.
with the advancement team here and the other talking with former deans, I think what is probably going to be one of the greatest helps is that truly Chancellor Malloy's been very involved with this. We drag him off to lunches on a regular basis, and having support at the system level, as well as the chairs of the board, all of that makes a big difference in how people perceive the support of the system for what it is we're doing. And I anticipate that that's going to make a big difference here.
I feel like the chancellor's name needs to be on your committee then. I see him laughing. The other question I have is obviously there are like multiple foundations inside the system. Have you and you have a unique alumni set, which is an asset, right? That is it's uniquely yours and includes both people from in-state and out of state. Was the sort of assessment of the giving capacity of that specific group what drove the $10 million number?
Yes. So 10 million, I hope is actually quite conservative.
That was gonna be my next question. I was almost
Yes,
hesitant
yes.
to ask it, is like, because I kind of feel like it could be bigger than that, but I also know you have to like teach people to have a culture of giving in an alumni, which maybe hasn't happened at the law school.
That's it. That's exactly correct. And so this will be a learning curve for many. We want this to be a success, so we wanted to start conservatively and then build this. And I have to say, I've had a lot of help from Jeff Mills has been great, from the other foundation. And I think USM's foundation is starting to get involved with us. A lot of that actually connects back in to the fundraising for the center. So we'll be talking about a lot of those in the future.
Okay, that's great. I hope you crush the goal early and raise it. It's very exciting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Chancellor, good morning.
Good morning. I just want to remind the dean/president that a long time ago when I called on her at her office to talk about the possibility that she would become the dean of the law school, of course, it was supposed to be a 20-minute, I think I stayed there for 2.5 hours until I had won her over. But one of the big points that she made was that she had no background in raising money and wasn't up for that and couldn't do that. And I'm just very proud that we taught her how to do it. And this is a great campaign. A lot of work has already gone into it. I have participated, and I want to congratulate the law school and the law school community for taking this very big step and having done all of the work that needed to get it to this point. And I certainly hope that the board will support this.
So I will say I said no, I'm not, 30 years on the bench. I'm not doing fundraising. I can't do fundraising. And he said, you will, you can, and I will support you. And as with many other things, he has been true to his word. So here we are.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Chancellor. Any other questions of the president? Seeing none, then let me read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the Board of Trustee or for Board of Trustee approval at the July 14, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and approves the University of Maine School of Law's comprehensive campaign plan as presented by President and Dean Lee Softly at its June 25, 2025 meeting. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Michoud and seconded by Trustee Kane. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you please take the roll call vote?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane?
Yes.
Trustee Flood?
Yes.
Trustee Michoud?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
Go forth and raise money.
Thank you. Thank
Congratulations. Thank you. So we'll move on then to the next item, tab 10. It's a lease renewal authorization at the University of Southern Maine, a new singular wireless proposal. President Edmondson, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Cates. We're glad to be here with you this morning, and this is a pretty straightforward request. The University of Southern Maine is seeking authorization to renew a lease with New Singular Wireless, otherwise known as AT&T, for space that they lease on the rooftop of the former law school building. And I'll turn it over to Justin Swift for a little more detail on that.
Thank you, President. So this lease is a renewal of an existing lease that is currently in place. We have leased space to New Singular Wireless, otherwise known as AT&T, since February of 2000. So it's been a long-standing lease. The lease expires next June. And so this extension would carry on from that point in time. This is for the initial 5-year term with the option to extend it 5 additional terms. So the lease is expected to generate, the lease amounts $22,557 a year with an annual escalator of 3%.
Thank you, Justin. Questions? Chancellor Malloy?
Yes, I want to make sure that this is, we've had a number of conversations about taking that building down and or doing other things with that portion of the property. Does this tie our hands in any way, or is there a way to get out of? So could you speak to that so that we have that on the record?
Yes, that's a good question. That was a concern I had as well. We also lease to other cellular companies on that building as well. So this is just one of, I believe, 2 or 3 leases for space on that roof. The terms of the lease, we can terminate the lease at any time by providing a 1-year notice.
And following up on that, Justin, sorry, again, which building is this?
The former law building.
Okay. Other questions? So we have other towers that are there that have leases extending out several years from today already. Is that?
That's right.
Okay. So even if we were to change the lease provision in this particular one to say we can get out of it at any time, we still have the issue of other tenants, if you will, that have 1-year termination clauses in their leases?
That's right.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Michoud.
Yep. On this lease, I assume everyone's out of the old building. Is that a correct assumption? And if so, or even if it isn't so, are the leases that we currently have for the towers on that building, they able to provide the resources we need for the heat and whatever electricity might be there, water, sewer?
Yes, the towers don't require water or sewer, but they do require electricity, and these have separate meters on them. So the company is responsible for paying the electric bills on that, but there is power to the building.
Yeah, but to do the lease, I mean, we will have to heat it. So will the lease help with the heating costs, even though they're not using the inside of the building, but will offset the heating cost?
It will help. The revenue does come to the university, which helps cover costs.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Gretchen?
Thank you. Even with a vacant building, with the heat, we still need to heat it to keep the pipes from freezing, and we need to keep the pipes from freezing because we have to have fire suppression, et cetera. So that's why we need to maintain that. And Justin, would you have an alternative location for these towers potentially in the future?
It's possible. We would have to discuss that with each company. Part of it depends on the height and the location that they're trying to target with these signals.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Justin, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but roughly how much are we getting in lease payments per year from these various towers on that building?
On that building specifically, it's about 30. I almost want to say I don't know for sure.
Okay, thanks. Other questions?
Mr. Chair, I think we could probably get you maybe a summary of all of the lease tower information for maybe a going forward conversation, because I was reflecting that, when I first came to the system, we used to have like 3 of these on every agenda because that was the window when cell towers were expanding, and you can remember going south to Portland and you'd always lose your signal in Richmond. And so we put up all of these towers in that 2010 window. And I think these are starting to come up. And so you're going to start seeing more and more of these as we roll forward some of those long-term leases that are finally expiring.
Thanks, that'd be helpful. Other questions? Seeing none, then let me read the text of the proposed resolution that the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the consent agenda for Board of Trustee approval at the July 14, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Southern Maine to extend the lease with New Singular Wireless for space located at 246 Deering Avenue in Portland for a cell tower when the current lease expires on July 31, 2026, with all final terms and conditions subject to review and approval of the University of Maine System Treasurer and General Counsel. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
trustee Mishu and seconded by trustee Kane. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you please take the roll call vote?
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
Trustee McMahon?
Yes.
Trustee Kane?
Yes.
Trustee Flood?
Yes.
Trustee Mishu?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. The next agenda item is the University of Southern Maine Capital Plan briefing. This, I think we had this actually on our last agenda and didn't get it reached because of a time crunch. So this is just our usual cadence of hearing from each university on their capital planning. And so we're glad to welcome University of Southern Maine and President Edmondson for that this morning.
Great. Thank you so much. We're really pleased to have the opportunity to share with you our capital plan for review. And again, I'll turn it over to Justin Swift. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, President. I will share the slide deck with you. Okay, so thank you for taking the time this morning for allowing us to present our capital plan review. The current state of our facilities. So we work with Gordian, as you are aware, and Gordian works with us on assessments of our physical plant. And so, Gordian's assessment has about 61% of USM's campus profile as either high risk or highest risk renovation age. And this is projected to increase to 85% of USM's total footprint by 2030. Historically, USM's capital funding has not kept up with the current USM portfolio. USM requires about $15 million to $24 million to keep up with the demands of our buildings. And as a result, the asset reinvestment needs have grown by 32% since 2020. And USM has seen an increase in overall net asset value for the campus, primarily due to the addition of several new buildings that we have recently built. Some are planning to come online. And this has also increased the required net investment targets for the university as well. So in fiscal year 2018, the reinvestment need was $281 million. In fiscal year 24, it has grown to $436 million. And so this shows that our deferred maintenance continues to grow. Our fiscal year 2018 net asset value was at 54%. Fiscal year 18 was at 54%, and in fiscal year 24, it was at 58%, as I mentioned, primarily because of the new buildings that we have brought online. So budget and enrollment challenges. Over the last decade, USM's undergraduate enrollment has declined. Over that 10-year span, about 22%. Our graduate enrollment, though, has increased by about 17%. The campus has made some strides in this area, and I think next year when we come back and update the projections and the fiscal year 26 projections, I think you'll see that trend start to go in a positive direction, especially for the undergraduate enrollment. So our space enrollment declines outpace the space reduction at USM. And over the past 6 years, USM has seen a decline in student FTE as well. About 25% of our student body lives on campus. And up until fiscal year 24, our square footage has been relatively flat. In 24, we had a couple of new buildings open up. So our space reduction, this is something that we look at every year, and we are committed to looking for efficiencies, ways to reduce unused infrastructure. So we have demolished 5 buildings over the last 5 years, between Portland and Gorham. Over the last fiscal year, we did sell 5 properties on the Gorham campus. These were at the very edge, on the perimeter of the campus. And the sale of these was also related to the approval for the Crew Center for the Arts that will be coming online next month. We also have 134 School Street, which is a house on our Gorham campus that we are looking at for possible demolition. That would be on the site that we are considering for a potential art building. And then, as you're well aware, we have 2 larger buildings that we're looking at for demolition as well. Funding right now is to be determined for them. The Dickey Wood Hall, which is a unused residence hall on the Gorham campus, it has been closed for about 11 years now, and then the law building. So our net asset value is about 58%. And USM's footprint, about 61% of it is considered high risk. So compared to our facilities peers, we have greater high risk. The UMaine Systems renovation age overall is at 54%. So USM the risk is right in between our peers and the UMaine System renovation age. The renovation age, just to put some context around it, it's an estimated, it is based on estimated factors such as the remodeling, upkeep, and improvements that we have made to facilities over time. Okay. The renovation age profile by campus. So this looks at our Gorham, Portland, and Lewiston campuses and looks at the renovation age by campus. You'll see in Gorham, we have a 62% high risk. And what should be noted there is the Gorham campus has older buildings. We actually have several buildings that are in excess of 100 years old. And the Gorham campus is known as our historic campus. So the renovation age on that campus is greater. In Portland, a lot of our buildings are from the 1960s and newer. And in recent years, USM has added a couple of new buildings and then another building that will be coming online later this summer. The Lewiston campus has a much younger renovation age. It's a more modern building. It's been renovated more recently compared to the others. And then USM is older and has reduced less age than our peers. And so the construction age refers to the number of years that have elapsed since the building construction was complete. And the renovation age, as I mentioned, is it's based on the upkeep improvements that have been made on the building. You generally want a larger gap between the construction age and the renovation age on this graph. As you can see, USM has a construction age of 49.2 years and a renovation age of 43.2 years. Okay, new space in recent years, from fiscal years 22 to 24 has dominated our capital investments. And going forward in fiscal year 25, 26, we do have the Crew Center for the Arts coming online. And beyond that, the campus is prioritizing investment in an existing space. So in our multi-year capital plans, you will see that more of the older current infrastructure is slated to see investment there. So our existing space investment is under average. So prioritizing existing space investments will ensure that programs will continue to serve the students and clients on the campus. So, as I showed you before, new space has been the predominant recipient of investment. Some of our current investment in current facilities in fiscal year 24 includes the Dubiec Center in our science building, renewing building systems infrastructure, the Deering Farmhouse renewal on our Portland campus, and then the Center for Teaching Innovation, which is a space that we renovated in Bailey Hall on our Gorham campus. So those are some examples of current space investment we have made. Okay. And then our investment in our infrastructure has not kept up with the deferred maintenance and the backlog and growing deferred maintenance. In fiscal year 24, just to not increase the risk of the increasing deferred maintenance, we would have had to invest about $14.9 million into our physical plant. And then to increase the net asset value, we would have had to invest upwards of 24 million into our physical plant. So we are far from that. And so every year our deferred maintenance continues to grow. So our capital plan overview, in fiscal year 26, we have about $27 million supporting 14 projects. The 5-year plan encompasses $252 million supporting 94 projects. And some of the key projects in our capital plan include our Cruise Center for the Arts, which is the newer building on the Portland campus that will be coming online in mid-August. On the Gorham campus, Bailey Hall is our largest academic building. And so in our capital plan, we are replacing the envelope on that building. It's going to be a 5-year project. It primarily has to be done over the summer months. It's a building we cannot take offline because, as I mentioned, it's our largest academic building. We need it during the academic year. So the plan is to redo the envelope around that building over a 5-year time. The Roby Andrews renovation, this is one of our oldest residence halls on the Gorham campus, and the campus is currently looking at renovating that building. Corthell Hall renovation, this was the building that the School of Music was housed in on the Gorham campus. The School of Music is primarily moving to the Cruise Center for the Arts, but they will still retain a small footprint in Corthell Hall, especially practice rooms for students residing on the Gorham campus. We also have plans for some other administrative offices for that building as well. The Sullivan Gym on the Portland campus, we are exploring options for this gym, for this building right now. It's a gym that has a very low net asset value. It has a lot of deferred maintenance on it. We are considering possible P3 options for that at this point in time, but that's early in the planning stages. And then the demolition of Dickey Wood Hall and the old law school building are on our capital plan. These are items that we are still need to determine the funding on. And then Wish Camper and the Abramson building are buildings that will need HVAC upgrades, and that is something that we are working through right now. So our fiscal year 26 capital plan. So the project types, we have a number of project types ranging from new space, grounds, renovation of existing space, utilities, building envelopes, and systems. In fiscal year 26, you'll see that a large part of that is new space. And that is primarily the Cruise Center for the Arts coming online later this summer. Funding sources. So the large gold on there, the revenue bond, is related to the Cruise Center for the Arts. And about 20 about 20% of our funding is in E&G, 15%, excuse me. About 1% is auxiliary, and then fundraising comprises 22% of our fiscal year 26 capital plan. And then there's a small to be determined there that we are working through on the campus. So our fiscal year 26 capital plan is weighted heavily right now to academic space, and that is the Crew Center for the Arts coming online. And then we do have administrative space, the residence hall, student life, and this category that is unnamed. On the academic, in addition to the Crew Center for the Arts, another larger portion of this is the Bailey Hall envelope, and we are funding that also over a 5-year span. On the administrative, that's the Abramson HVAC upgrades. The residence hall that you see there are some bathroom upgrades and other infrastructure upgrades that we are looking at for some of our Gorham residence halls. And then in student life, we have the esports arena, which will be coming online this summer as well. And then that unnamed category that you see there, in our fiscal year 26 capital plan, we did set aside $750,000 to address elevators on the campus too. Our elevators are aging, and we, every month we have a stack of work orders to do maintenance on them for various reasons. They sometimes break down unexpectedly. And so that's to target some of that need on campus. Our 5-year capital plan has more of a focus on existing space. And so we have renovation, renewal, building systems, building envelope, demolition, utilities, and then our new category gets much smaller. In our 5-year capital plan funding, a large portion of that you'll see is to be determined, and that is related to a residence hall on the Gorham campus that we know that we need to address. We don't have a funding solution worked out yet on it. We do have some ideas for it. We are looking at some P3 options, particularly around the Sullivan Gym. Our 5-year investment by facility function. So we are really targeting academic and residence hall space in our 5-year plan. And then in the student admin athletic, we are also targeting smaller needs there, particularly around mechanical systems. So Gordian has suggested or recommended to us that, addressing where the net asset value is, but also targeting space that is used by academic and student spaces. And so we are adhering to that advice and targeting those spaces as shown here. So our 5-year capital plan around E&G and auxiliary funds. Right now, in fiscal year 25, our E&G and auxiliary renovation fund budget is about $4.2 million. When we presented our fiscal year 26 budget, we mentioned that we were increasing that by $300,000, and that we did do. So our fiscal year 26 E&G and auxiliary capital budget is now $4.5 million. And the campus is committed to increasing that going forward. More of our planned maintenance is on existing infrastructure, addressing deferred maintenance projects. So in our 5-year capital plan, you'll see a lot less new space and more addressing more existing space. We are targeting assets with low net asset values with high value and high usage. So we are trying to invest our limited dollars in spaces that have high utilization, but also that we will recognize value with as well, trying to be very responsible with our limited funds. We are also looking at replacement and repair of inefficient and aged mechanical and electrical plumbing systems as well. I mentioned some of the HVAC upgrades as the newer systems are more energy efficient than the aging systems that we have, and will provide more reliable service as well, reducing some of the unexpected breakdowns and repairs that we have experienced over recent years. Some examples of these projects include the Bailey Hall envelope replacement. It's a 5-step project. The construction itself is planned to take 5 years. That right now we're in the engineering phase of it, with the actual construction planned to take place next summer. We are also looking at replacement and repair of underground heating systems on the Gorham campus. This is one of those items that people don't see. They don't realize we're doing it, but when the system stops working, everyone notices it. So a lot of these infrastructure upgrades are very necessary in making sure that the campus is reliable and the campus has heat, hot water, items that just work behind the scenes that people just don't see, but they are very well aware of it when they stop working. And then on the Lewiston campus, we're also looking at some HVAC upgrades on that building as well. So asset reinvestment need. So a 10-year window. So our deferred maintenance is about $436 million. Right now, almost 200 million, just short of half of that, is current need. And what that generally means is that the life cycle in these facilities are past due. The systems have exceeded their useful or expected life. We have degraded performance. They're generally inefficient. And so this is where Gordian, it has us targeting some of this need as well. About $95 million is, coming due. So this is life cycle. This is infrastructure that's coming due within the next 10 years, about $95 million. And then about $143.2 million are modernization needs. And this is infrastructure that Gordian recommends that we have in a 10-year capital plan. Okay, net asset value. So the campus value for addressed needs. So USM is at 58% here, which is in line with the UMaine system, which is also at 58%. Our facilities peers are at 59%. And the 58% puts USM in the systemic renovation stage. And this means that, buildings require more significant repairs. There are major components that are in jeopardy of failure. And a lot of this infrastructure does require large-scale capital infusions or renovations that will be inevitable over time. This puts us in the area where a lot of the projects are finding us. So we do put together our 1- and 5-year capital plans with the best knowledge that we have, with the best of intentions, but sometimes we have to pivot because a piece of equipment might have failed that we weren't planning on, or it was not in that current fiscal year's plan. And so we do have to shift and address needs as they arise. Okay, inflation outpasses operating expenditures. So we've all experienced this in our personal financial lives. The buying power of $1 in 2020, in 2024 is now, it costs us $1.22 for the same benefit. And the challenge here is that over this time span, the campuses have not increased USM has not increased its capital investments to keep up with the deferred maintenance over that time. So our buying power has essentially decreased. And part of that's driven by labor costs. the supplies and materials have increased. And this shows that there's a demonstrated need to grow the dollars that we invest into our renovation fund. So USM is, for fiscal year 26, we have increased that by $300,000. And as I mentioned, we are committed to continuing to increase that to address these needs, not only the inflationary pressures, but to address the backlog of deferred maintenance as well. So opportunities that we have identified here. So on some of the slides, you saw that the funding is to be determined. And we are exploring projects, ideas to renovate the Roby Andrews building, exploring the use of revenue bonds there. We are exploring the potential for P3 projects, particularly with Sullivan Gem. And then we do have several critical projects that are in need of funding solutions that we are working through: the industrial engineering expansion, the demolition of a couple of large buildings on the campus. And then the facility operations and maintenance budget's ability to maintain existing facilities and new facilities in the plan. Like a lot of employers, we are facing challenges with being able to hire and retain facilities workers. Some of it's the pay scale that we have. Sometimes we're just not competitive with the private market. Some of it's just that there's a shortage of the trades labor as well, which has exacerbated the issue. So looking ahead, so USM is committed to increasing our capital funds budget. So for between fiscal year 25 and 26, on E&G and auxiliary, we've gone from 4.2 to 4.5 million, with plans to continue to increase that. We are planning to address needs in existing facilities. There'll be more of a priority addressing our current facilities, particularly in academic and residential areas, which are usually high use, high impact, student facing areas. We also plan to target areas with low net asset value and maximize opportunities to realize efficiencies. Sometimes, upgrading HVAC systems, for example, creates efficiencies which may have savings in our utility costs. It will likely also materialize in some savings with having to, right now we have to address a lot of unexpected breakdowns and maintenance issues with some of our aging infrastructure. And then we are continuing to seek and identify external funding opportunities as well. And then we will also continue to identify and leverage opportunities to not only improve net asset value, but also concurrently grow revenue opportunities through our investments. Some of these include, improving facilities that can be used year round, which will allow us to use it for conferences, perhaps summer camps. Sometimes addressing some of these needs allows us to increase revenue streams. So that is an area that we're also very much focused on. So I know I've given you a lot of information. That concludes our capital plan review presentation.
Justin, thanks very much, and thanks for these slides, which give us a great deal of information, which we appreciate. Questions? Let me ask one. The 5-year capital plan, which you're referencing, do you know what kind of impact that would have on the overall net asset value? I know it's low now. I can't remember what the number is, but if you did everything on that 5-year plan,
yeah, it would grow. It would grow our net asset value. It might bring it up to the 75, 80. Our deferred maintenance is still 436 million, and it continues to grow every year. If we did everything on our capital plan, it would address about half of that on the 5-year capital plan. So our 5-year capital plan is about $252 million.
Right, but just in gross numbers, we look at that net asset value percentage. It's something which is kind of easy to understand. do you have an estimate of what of that would change it from its current number of X to hopefully a new number of Y, or is that not that easy to determine?
It's not that easy to, I can probably calculate that for you working with Gordy, and right now we're at 58%. The challenge is as we address needs, other needs are emerging. And so even though as we address these, we're adding to the deferred maintenance list at the same time.
Thank you. Trustee Worth, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I have three in a row, so I'll bang them out all in a row. If any of these are better discussed in exec session, just let me know. The first one was similar in line to Roger's question. You mentioned that 436 million of deferred maintenance is growing. Assuming the 252 in this 5-year, investment plan is fully completed, at the end of this 5-year investment term, what does that deferred maintenance look like? Has it still continued to outgrow, and have we added more than 252 million, even though we've spent that in the next 5 years, or will it result in a lower 5 years from now amount of deferred maintenance?
It should result in a lower amount. Right now, we're adding just about $10 million in deferred maintenance every year.
I think the other thing that we would hope, if I could, is that we would hope, state government steps in as they occasionally do and give us resources to invest in dorm renovations and something like that. So hopefully we're pleasantly surprised along the way as well.
Great. Thank you. And then my other one was based on that slide where you had the 60% as to be determined. Does that mean that for the next 5-year plan, 60%, or just next year's plan, 60% is undetermined?
Yes, that was the 5-year plan, 60%.
Okay. And then you had mentioned when you were saying that a lot of that was due to Robey Andrews. Is the entirety of that 60% due to Robey Andrews, or is that spread out through other projects
It's
as well?
spread out among a number of projects. Robey Andrews is probably the larger of them, but that also includes the industrial engineering expansion that we are looking at doing. That's to be determined as well.
Okay. And then my final question is, you mentioned, Dickey Wood as well as the law building, looking at new and different solutions. Obviously, you mentioned, Dickey has been out for a little over a decade now. Is it a private market issue? Is it a cost issue? Is it a lack of state help issue? Because I'm assuming for 10 years, folks have been looking for these types of solutions. So I guess I'm wondering, as good as the ideas that you might have are, what makes the idea you have next week different than the idea that someone had 6 or 7 years ago? Are we hitting a brick wall with just funding here, or?
You mean in terms of demolishing those buildings?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funding issue right now. The millions of dollars it would take just to take down one of those buildings. It's one of these, if we had that funding, we don't have that funding laying around right now. And as Ryan mentioned, if we get support there, then it becomes more likely we can address that. But it's also weighing the priorities too. If we, do I set funding aside every year to address that, or do I address space that's currently being used by people at this point?
Are you all set?
Yeah, I saw Gretchen had her hand up. I wasn't sure if that was for my question or something else.
Yeah, but we'll find out. Gretchen.
Thank you, Trustee Worth and Trustee Cates. So to build on the demolition conversation, Ryan and I are planning to come back to an FFT committee meeting in the near future, to discuss possible strategies to address that from a larger scale. So how can we do more demolition projects to address these gaps?
Thank you, Gretchen. And just to remind everybody about that, we, as a board, we asked that the system do this report on demolition and system-wide and some possible alternatives for approaching it and for funding it. They produced an excellent report. It's sitting on the shelf. It's starting to gather dust, so shame on us, but we really do need to come back and revisit that. They did exactly what we asked them to do, and we should now consider it and consider the alternatives that they raised. Trustee Michoud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, quick question. It's an overall question, getting back to fire suppression, heating a building. Are all the systems within all the buildings within the system, are they all wet sprinkler system, or there's some dry fire systems? Because with a dry system, you don't have to heat the building. Or is that something, because we're a public university, by code, you have to have a wet sprinkler system versus a dry sprinkler system? I don't know who best could answer that.
I think I can take that one. It depends on the building. So we have different suppression mechanisms in different various buildings. So it depends on the building.
And you don't know if we have any dry systems currently? Normally they'd be in big buildings, that particularly if you're like a warehouse, normally would have them there, but you don't know if you got any dry systems.
I'm fairly confident that we do, and I can get you a more detailed answer on that, Trustee Mishu. I believe we do have some dry mechanisms on some of our campuses.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions for the University of Southern Maine about their capital plan? If not, Justin and President said, thank you so much for this. It's a lot of food for thought, a lot of great information on those slides for us to consider. And again, coming back to the demolition issue system-wide, we're going to try to get that on an FFT agenda soon, or maybe even have a special shorter meeting specifically to consider that, because it's just it's beginning to drag and we need to give it some more thought. So thank you very much. Next on the agenda, Graham Leach Bliley Act Information Security Report by Robert Placido, our Chief Information Officer. Good morning, Robert, and if you would first identify, prove to us that you're human. And
I'm touching my eye. I don't know. It's something random. Yeah, that's funny. Happy to present this today. Before I'm really gonna pass this over to my colleague John Forker, but before I do that, I wanted to thank John for his nearly 3 decades of service to UMS. His last 14 years, he's done an excellent job as your Chief Information Security Officer. He served as in the Air Force for many years, retiring as a squadron commander. So he's had a really rich career. Plans to retire in August. So this is his last FFT meeting. So thank you, John. I couldn't have asked for a better partner in my first year. Your colleagues will miss you. So I'll pass it over to him to go through this this annual report that's required of us due to this law.
Thank you, Robert, for that kind introduction. So, this is an annual report that's required by the Graham Leach Bliley Act, and it's substantially unchanged from last year. The report includes a summary of our information security program, a brief summary. We actually have a separate document that's sort of the 5-page outline of our program, but this just sort of summarizes it because a program is required, an information security officer, a qualified official is required, but also this report enumerates the requirements that GLB has for us to maintain security for financial aid information. This is a timely handoff of this report because we just completed our annual risk assessment that we do with in cooperation with several IT departments that meet the controls, as well as the financial aid offices across the state. We see no significant findings in this report. Our report will be reviewed by the auditors when they come this summer. So we're proud to show significant progress in areas. And I'm open for questions if you want me to discuss anything more or walk you through it.
John, thank you very much. Are there questions for John about this report? I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much, and Wishing you all the best in your new adventures.
Thank you.
Anything further on this agenda item? Robert, anything else to add on that from your perspective?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to tab 13 also with Robert Placido, the system CDR Vision.
Yes, and thank you, Chair. Today, I'm happy to present a new system that we built from the ground up, one that will provide us with unprecedented insights into our telecommunications infrastructure, an exciting topic for sure. But before I delve into the specifics of the systems itself, I wanted to highlight how it was built. So you and Ryan, in particular, have been encouraging the adoption of artificial intelligence in our operations. The project is a direct and powerful result of that directive. The entire system, from concept to fully functional, secured platform, integrated with our Cisco phone system, which is very complicated, was designed, developed, deployed by a single person in a month. To be clear, the project of this complexity would typically require a dedicated team and much longer time frame, possibly years. Without leveraging AI as a development partner, this achievement simply would not have been possible. So it's a nice moment to celebrate, but to share with the board that we're not just using AI to make our more external operations like writing and communication and those things more efficient, but our back-end systems being completely reimagined using AI overnight. So I also wanted to share this project to highlight our telecommunications team, led by Todd Boynton, who does an excellent job providing phone services across the entire state. We have nearly 10,000 devices. We take 1 million calls per month. As Justin just mentioned in his report, that these systems and people go unsung until their systems stop working, i.e. you only notice them when there's a problem. So I wanted to call out and say what a great job that team does. So what is the system? It's a comprehensive call detail record, is sort of the industry standard. That's where CDR comes from. It's an analysis platform that integrates directly with our Cisco call management system. It processes all the raw data from every phone call and transforms it into actionable business intelligence. Surprisingly, not a great many options out there, and the ones that are super expensive. Certainly nothing we could touch. So I started the project because I had 3 questions that couldn't be answered. Certainly the CBOs were interested in these. How do we audit our trunk usage? And I'll sort of touch on what a trunk is, but basically that's where all our phone calls go through, and that's how our phone partners bill us. And how do people still use their desktop phones? You know, we've got Zoom, we've got chat, we've got email. So when was the last time you picked up your desk phone is a question. And do we know which phones have to be replaced in the coming years? So about 6 years ago, the UMS, rightly so, went to a phone system that works on the internet. And that was a great decision, reducing overall costs, but that initial capital outlay was significant. Each of those phones is now a little mini computer. They cost between $400 and $800 to replace, depending on the model, and some of them $1,500. We have a few of those. So we have to have a plan when you have 10,000 devices for replenishment and the impact of that. So how do we answer those questions turns out a fairly difficult thing to do. Manual reports, gathering information, putting it in Excel, and studying and analyzing. So now I'm going to share with you the system just briefly. I'm not doing a training montage here, but just to demonstrate our progress. So again, it's a full stack application environment. It's integrated with our single sign-on, authorizing me to log in using an account. And if I run into an issue here, I do have a backup. But So the dashboard provides call analytics. So you can see in this time period of a month, we had almost 1 million calls. Right away, the analytics started to pull out issues that we weren't even aware of that we're starting to work on. You can see the pink here is failed calls. So, you know, we have a 12% connection rate. In other words, somebody picks up the phone and they dial a number and it connects to another end and does that fully complete. So again, this was was happening sort of under the hood in the underlying data, but we didn't have insight into it. We now know why this is happening, and we're taking steps to remediate. But again, and this was just tip of the iceberg. We break all the analytics down over time periods. We have locations and so forth. Like you could see over the past, since the call center data was starting to be captured, you can see that UM has 22 million calls in the system with a connection rate of 3%. So I'm clicking over on the side to the menu. You can see this is just the dashboard. We have many different reports that tell us different things, and I'll just touch on a few of them. So the device dashboard, again, it's a summary of information. We had in this time period 8,600 devices on the system, 3,000 of which did something, made a call or did some sort of activity, 35% utilization rate. We have a breakdown by those devices. So our Cisco 8900 model, you can see that's the primary use, and that also gives us insight into what models we have out in the field and which ones are being used. We do have analog phones. We have alarms that work on our phone system. We have elevators. We have credit card machines, and we have all of that insight now here. We break it down by location. And the one thing I wanted to point out here, the top used devices, we realize that looking into this data, that we had a device, and you can see the device type is an elevator. It made in this time period, which I think is a month, 92,000 calls. So immediately, this pulls up to our technicians to say, why is that happening? Well, turns out in the telecom world, all these copper strands go between one building and another, and they go underground, and they're in tubes, and sometimes those tubes get cracked and they get full of water, and sometimes the wires get chewed by mice and all kinds of things, and it causes a short. And so this is an easy way to detect that there's an error on a piece of equipment, that a short is happening, and so that short is causing the failures, and it's causing so you saw that in the first report, and it's also causing that the call not to be completed because it wasn't really a call. So now we have a report that our technicians can pull up and proactively go out and find these devices that are doing something we didn't know about. It turns out also, in terms of these elevators, that the vendor who installed the elevator designed their system to do what's called a heartbeat. So they have phones, they're analog devices in all the elevators, and those phones do a kind of a call home, and it was set to about once a minute for most of the phones. So it was calling home once a minute just to say that it was healthy, so in case there was an emergency. So that was sort of operating as expected, but probably doing it more frequently than it needed to. So again, I'm just giving you some different use cases. The other thing is, I mentioned that the phones are now internet-based. Well, that relies on a quality internet connection. So today we're enjoying a Zoom call that isn't jittering. There's no pausing or delayed in my speech, I hope. And that's because we have a quality network infrastructure underneath it, making sure that quality happens. Well, we didn't have any insight onto our phone system to say, what are those key metrics to the quality of a phone call? And so now we do some of those things, not to get into it: packet loss, jitter, latency, and then what are the call volume trends during the day? Do the trends match these other metrics? Now, the last thing I'm going to show is the underutilized devices. So this is one of the questions I had, is if we're going to develop a replenishment plan for these phones, do we actually need to replace all the phones? Because anecdotally, I get told by people all the time is, why do I have a desk phone? I never use it. And we shouldn't be spending capital resources on things that we don't use. So again, the CBOs asked me to dig into this. So primary purpose of the system was this report. So what we did is for all the different item types, like say this analog phone down here, we have a database of estimated monthly cost to run that phone. And then we have an estimated replacement cost of that particular device. You can see there are different costs and devices down here, depending on the type of phone and so forth. So then we set a threshold on, tell me all the devices that made less than 10 calls in a month. And I can set this down to, some other number, 2 calls in a month. So 5,900 phones or phone devices made less than 2 calls. And you can see these unused, never in this time period, in a whole month. So of the nearly 6,000 phones, if we were to replace them, what would that cost be? And if we continue to operate them, it costs $100,000 a month to operate these phones, and nobody's using them. So for the first time ever, we have a system with phone system business intelligence to make decisions. And fairly new, just presented this to the CBOs for them to consider. It's not straightforward where you just say, well, you didn't use your phone, I'm taking it away because there's life safety issues. There might be a phone in a hallway that's there just in case. But now the campus leaders have greater insight to make those kinds of decisions. So I thought you would be interested to see use of AI, use of a new system, use of business intelligence, and to know that we have a great telecommunications team supporting you. And that's my report, sir.
Thanks, Robert. Really interesting. Questions? So what I had was, did you say that overall that some very low percentage, like I think in the University of Maine's case, 3% of calls that were completed actually had a conversation? And you said I think you said you were able to sort of figure out why that was?
Yep. So it amounted to some things that will always happen. Those were those elevator cases where they're making kind of a phone home check, a health check. But we had about 20 devices that were going through a path that was under construction. And it, without anybody knowing, there was a break in an underground tunnel tube that contains the wires that went out to the field houses and some other places, and those phones were shorting out. And so those phones nobody was using them and nobody was picking up the receiver, but behind the scenes there was a short, due to, ice or water getting in the tube. And so the system was repeatedly seeing a call from it over and over and over, which, in and of itself, the phone still works. It's not really doing anything, but it's filling up our systems. It's using the switch devices. It's wearing out the back end internals, and we didn't know the error was occurring. So now we have a proactive way to go out there and deal with those things. And the very first week we saw that insight, we had a technician go out and deal with every single one of those broken phones.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Emily.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert. Super fascinating. I remember the days of the wall phones that were in buildings across campus, which I frequently used to dial the 5-digit code that would make me call my friends, or a campus office. And it's amazing that that was not that long ago. So, well, maybe it was, and I don't want to admit that. But the question I have is, in my experience, personal experience, many of the buildings on our campuses have terrible cell phone service because of how they are built, what they're made of, where they are, not because of where the towers are. Like buildings in Orono, right? Where you are in the office and you cannot maintain a cell phone call with someone, in which case you talk to them on the desktop phone, right? Um, how do you account for that as you think about getting rid of desktop phones? I love the the internet phones on the desktop phones connected to the internet make a lot of sense to me. I worry about replacing all of them though, because the cell phone service is absolute garbage in a number of our buildings, and that has nothing to do with us. That is
Yeah.
not our fault. There's nothing we can do about that. We need to keep, electing people and supporting investment in rural access to the internet, I mean, to broadband and cell phone towers. But also, if Verizon decides to deprioritize us, we lose cell phone service, right? And it gets even worse. So, how do you balance functionality with that? Like, we can't control that, right? Like, if there's a wired connection or it's an internet, that's fine. But but cell phones just don't do it in our buildings, and I wanted to say that out loud.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the first comments the CBO's made is, it's not a straight business decision, shut the phones off, because there is a life safety issue because of what you just said. Not everybody has a cell phone, and in an emergency situation, you've got to have something that works all the time. So as an example, our phones have battery backup, so when power goes out, you still have a phone service, whereas cell towers could go down and that kind of thing. But there were some new laws that just came out to add greater flexibility of us having private cell services that my team is already exploring. And we can do things like put cell expansion services in buildings. Of course, all that comes at an added cost. The funny thing is, and Gretchen knows this better than any, is that the better we build our buildings, like with the perfect LEED, certified building, the worse the cell is in it. Because like, for example, in a LEED certified building, the glass has to be has to have a certain refraction on it, and that prevents cell signals from coming in. So we do have to have a strategy on that, and we do have to be thoughtful about pulling the devices out. But now we have a platform to at least, have some insight into those decisions.
Thanks. Other questions? Not seeing any. So again, Robert, thanks very much for the presentation. And the last thing on our planned agenda before we go to executive session is our usual strategic plan tracking update. Ryan Lowe.
Excellent. So Gretchen and I will tag team this one. If I could just add one thing to that last conversation, Mr. Chair, because I think it's a good one. Because I say this a lot when I do some of these AI trainings. The example that Robert just gave is, the kind of thing that pre-AI, so a year ago, if Robert delivers that report and we would have paid a consultant 80 grand to deliver it to us, we would have felt like it was value, well earned and good on us for getting that much return on that kind of investment. And in this case, I think, from my experience, better than nearly everyone in the country, we're leveraging AI to do the things like Robert is talking about. We're using it to do leverage a $20 a month tool to produce hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings across the system. And so I wanted to put in that plug before I jumped onto the strategic plan. So for the strategic plan, again, as you said, this is our regular update. I've got one update, and then I'll flip it over to Gretchen. I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more. You'll be talking about this a little bit more later today. First one I'll talk about is the very first one under the FFT tracking ones, and my personal favorite. which is that we will pass and we will propose a balanced budget for each fiscal year. Certainly happy to report on the progress of that one. We presented and you approved the FY26 budget at your April 30 meeting. We presented it to the full board on May 19th for approval, and so happy to check off that box, and it's one of several in the finance space and facilities space that are ongoing, and so we're already starting that cycle back up again, and look forward to presenting you a balanced budget again in FY27. So that's the one that I was covering today, and let me throw that over to Gretchen.
Thank you, Ryan. So my update today will focus on the goal EIP 1.1, so effective infrastructure portfolio goal, address the system-wide physical plant needs in relation to other physical infrastructure needs. So for example, resident hall improvements, et cetera. So throughout many of our FFT committee meetings, we've talked about the need to right-size our physical footprint in response to the changing enrollment trends and demographic shifts within our state. A master plan provides a comprehensive long-term roadmap for how our campuses should evolve, identifying which spaces we should preserve, repurpose, invest in, or even potentially divest. So we are currently working on putting together an RFP to go out for public bid to engage in a master planning process. This will be a phased approach across the campuses, so each plan reflects not only the aligns with the system goals, but also addresses the campus-specific needs. So you may be wondering, what is the difference between a master plan and a capital plan, which you've been receiving updates on? And the key differences is in their focus and their timeline. So a master plan sets the vision for the future, guiding land use, building placement, infrastructure, and space utilization over the next 10 to 20 years. A capital plan focuses more on the near term, so the 1-5-year plan, prioritizing how funding specific projects within the next few years will be based on available resources. So in short, the master plan tells us where we're going, and the capital plan tells us how we're going to do that. So we'll be working on getting that across the finish line and keep you updated as we move forward. That is my update, and I'm happy to entertain any questions people may have as well.
Thanks, Gretchen. Questions? Not seeing any, so thank you very much. And this is timely since the Strategic Planning Committee is meeting this afternoon, and hopefully Professor Kane can give FFT an A for its
it might even be an A+. Just
Okay.
want you to know that. Just wait and see. We have a graphic.
Excellent. Anything further on this topic? Seeing none, this isn't on the agenda, but I mean, we didn't talk about it, but Ryan or Sam or someone, we have good news to report on the state budget, and I didn't know if one of you might be able to give us an update on that.
Yeah, I think looking for Sam. I think Sam had to drop off for other work. So as you said, Mr. Chair, pleased that the final results of the state budget that was signed by the governor includes the 4% that was in the governor's original budget. It includes the kind of the hold harmless piece related to the sick leave, to the paid family leave piece, and so excited about both of those. I'll note, for the last, I think, four fiscal years, we've had consistent increases of 3.5% and 4%, and so really, really grateful to our partners in state government, the governor, the legislature, for that support.
Thank you. And just an article in one of the industry publications this morning talking about how in some states public support for public universities is waning in budgets this year. So this is really, really good news and somewhat bucking the trend nationally. So thanks to everybody who's been involved in that, particularly Ryan, the chancellor, and certainly Sam, who I guess is not on the call right now, as well as Chair Riley, who spent a lot of time at the State House as well. So thank you. We're now going to go vote to go into executive session. Chancellor Malloy, I don't know if there's anything further you wanted to say before we do that. You all set? No? Okay. All right, then let me could I have a motion for the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee of the Board of Trustees to go into executive session under the provisions of 1 MRSA Section 4056C to discuss the conditions, acquisition, or disposition of real property or economic development if premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive or bargaining position of the system. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Michu and seconded by Trustee Kane. Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Kane, trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Michu.
Yes.
The motion carries. I'll move you into executive session.
Okay, before you do, when we exit executive session, we'll just be adjourning the meeting. So thanks to those of you who will not be part of the executive session, and thanks to everybody who's participated this morning in such a concise and thoughtful way to get us through a lengthy agenda, actually well under time. So thank you. So we can now go into executive session. And happy 4th of July. We are adjourned.